And Minister, I want to return to the issue of renters' rights because, as we know, today does see another damning report confirming your government's failure in your basic duty to ensure that all citizens and residents have a secure and affordable home. And today's bad news, as we know, comes from the latest report of the Residential Tenancies Board. And there's no explaining away the stark figures they present. Their report shows that renters are now being hit with rent hikes of more than double the legal caps in some rent pressure zones. Between Q3 2022 and Q3 2023, we see existing tenants suffering average rises of 5.2%. And we see new tenancies seeing rental cost rises of more than 5 times the legal limits in rent pressure zones. Let's take Dublin. My own constituency is a much higher than average proportion of households in rental. This is something that affects across my constituency, but across Dublin we know the average rent for new tenancies is now €2,113 per month. 2113, 10% up year on year between Q3 2022 and Q3 2023. And 18% more than the average rent for existing tenants in Dublin. And existing tenants pay on average €1,788 per month in Dublin, up 4.3% year on year. Let's take Cork, your own area, Minister. New tenants pay on average now €1,386 per month, up 8.8% year on year. And existing tenants €1,170, up 4.5%. So with rent pressure zones covering so much of the country, these figures show that clearly there is an issue with flagrant breaches of renting law. We know that rents shouldn't increase in rent pressure zones by more than the legal cap, and yet they are. And Minister, a home is a basic right. And your government has a duty to ensure that people are housed in secure and affordable housing. But these figures tell us your government has failed in this duty. And this failure is having devastating consequences. And all of us are well aware of this because all of us hear from our own constituents about the serious effects that housing distress and the housing crisis is having. Plunging people into poverty, harming health, paralysing people's ability to progress their careers or get on with their lives. And so often people use words like despair, broken and frightened to describe how high rents and lack of housing security impact on their lives. And indeed, you've mentioned Ireland as an outlier. We're an outlier in the lack of protections we give to renters. And that's what's clear from this latest report. So, Minister, when will these endless reports, when will the correspondence we get from so many people in housing distress, when will this cause a change in government policy? When will you start building homes at the scale we need? And I listened carefully. You said we are likely to revise upwards housing targets. We in Labour called a year ago for a target of 50,000 new builds per year to be set. Where is that realistic target from your government? You keep threatening and promising, we don't see it. And when will you pass our Renters' Rights Bill, a constructive solution we in Labour proposed over a year ago now that would provide meaningful protections for renters stuck in unaffordable, insecure housing, and that would mean that Ireland would no longer be an outlier when it comes to real protections for renters?
Thank you very much, Deputy Bacik. Minister, please.
Thank you very much, Deputy Bacik. I mean, the supply numbers are real numbers. Since 2020, over 100,000 new homes have been built. That's more homes delivered in 4 years than in the previous 9 years combined. That is the reality. Almost 33,000 homes built in 2023. The RTB have the statutory powers that they need in relation to the enforcement of the rent pressure zone rules. They have the powers of investigation. They have been given additional resources by government to carry out that work, and they are active in ensuring that there is compliance with RPZ legislation. The report itself is very clear that it is not a measure of compliance with the RPZ rules. That's referenced multiple times actually in the report this morning, and I read it. And it is the case that we are increasing the supply of all types of homes. At the end of Q3 last year, almost 4,000 affordable homes had been delivered, supported by the Affordable Housing Fund, the Cost Rental Equity Loan, Project Tusig, and indeed the First Home Scheme as well. We have directly supported renters in the budget by increasing the rent tax credit by 50% to €750 per renter this year, and for a couple, of course, it is twice that amount. We've made significant changes to the housing assistance payment, which will secure and expand more tenancies. We've increased the discretionary rate from 20% to 35%, and single applicants will get the couple's rate. We have acquired about 1,700 properties last year, the vast majority of them tenants in situ. So again, designed to support tenants who are at risk of being evicted. But I do bring it back to the fundamental point. The reason that rents are rising is because demand is outstripping supply. And we have a population in Ireland that is growing. We have a young population. We are continuing to attract international labour, people coming here because of the employment opportunities and the quality of life that there is in Ireland. So we are doing as a government the single most important thing that will make a difference, and that is increasing the supply of homes. Just last week I attended the annual conference of Home Building Finance Ireland, which was set up back in 2019. They've exceeded all of their targets. They've provided funding approval of about €1.25 billion supporting the construction of 8,500 homes in 22 counties across Ireland. That's the kind of practical initiative that will actually make a difference, because for many builders and developers, access to funding is a key constraint. So we'll continue to work with them to increase the supply of homes. The state is now the principal actor in the housing market through all of the interventions that we have made, the LDA, Croí Cónaithe, the various grants that are there, and we will continue to do more in that regard, because we recognise the responsibility we have to increase supply, and we are making progress.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Bacik.
Minister, the measures you've described are simply not enough, and I don't think anyone in government would dispute that. They're simply not enough to deal with the real levels of housing distress. And again, you speak in the passive tense, demand outstripping supply, but it's up to government to do something about that. You've been in government now since 2020. We need to see action on this. And week in, week out, we hear you dismissing constructive proposals from opposition. You dismissed restricting no-fault evictions, you dismissed freezing rents, you dismissed the idea of linking increases to inflation, and you dismissed increasing building targets to 50,000 homes per year of new builds. But you never explain why you're dismissing these constructive proposals that could make a difference. Instead, you resort back to explaining and re-explaining plans. Ineffective measures like the renters' tax credit, only a drop in the ocean when we see these real figures on the average rents out there. So, Minister, with respect, the plans you have outlined are not working. You need to take more urgent and ambitious action. And I'm asking again, when will you increase the targets to the necessary figure of 50,000 new builds per year? You've been promising to do this for months, as has the Taoiseach. And when will you enact renters' rights legislation that will provide really meaningful protections for renters?
Minister, please.
Thanks, Deputy. We're not going to dismiss constructive suggestions from wherever they come across the House, because we recognise that this is a challenge. We do believe we are making progress as a government and as a country in increasing the supply of homes, but we have more to do, and we're never going to deny that. And we are open to constructive ideas and proposals from right across the House. It's important to make the point that the targets are not a limit. The targets do not limit the amount of construction, either by the state or indeed by the private sector. But the progress that we're making is evidenced, not least in the mortgage market. In 2023, first-time buyers accounted for 25,600 mortgage drawdowns, the highest level since 2007. And I pointed to the momentum, which is actually accelerating. Nearly 9,000 units commenced construction in the last quarter of last year, almost 50% higher than the same quarter in the previous year. So that gives an indication that homes are being built and homes are coming, and that is ultimately the most sustainable way of bringing supply more into line with the demand that is growing.